So, I'm going to make a statement, and when you hear this statement, I want you to pay attention to how your mind will try to resist it. And then also at the same time, you'll feel sort of like an inner resonance inside your heart center and your being. And I want you to pay attention to the subtle distinction between those two feelings, just as like a quick little spiritual exercise. And then I'll talk about what the statement means. So the statement is this. Your emotions are always correct. Your emotions are always correct. Let it sink in for a second. So why does the mind resist this idea? It resists this idea because your emotions are always speaking to the projections of your mind. They're always dictating to you the quality of each thought being generated by the mind. And the mind doesn't like to be tattletaled on, right? It wants you to think that it's always correct. And your emotions are untrustworthy. They're unreliable. They lead you astray. That's ridiculous. You can't trust your emotions. But your emotions never lead you astray. Your emotions tell you when you're already astray. By the time you feel bad, by the time you feel negative, you're already astray. You've already been thinking incorrectly in some way. And so you have this emotional guidance system built in, which is sort of like your higher self's direct line of communication with you. And so whenever you think a thought that runs in contradiction to the way reality actually is, you feel negative. And whenever you think a thought that is in alignment with the way reality actually is, you feel good. In the same way that if you put your hand on a hot stove, what happens? It hurts, right? And then you jerk your hand back. So your physical body has this built-in defense mechanism that tells you, versus pain or pleasure, how you're treating your body, correctly or incorrectly, right? So when you do something that's bad for your body, it hurts. And the pain is there to give you the motivation to stop doing that, right? To correct your behavior. When you feel good, you want to keep doing what it is that makes you feel good, because we like to feel good. So it works exactly the same way with your emotions. But the reason people don't have a healthy relationship with their emotions is because they believe that their emotions are speaking to their circumstances. Does that make sense? They believe that their emotions, so like if I have a presentation at work and I don't do very well, I totally bomb, I suck, everyone doesn't enjoy my presentation, I leave feeling bad, right? And so people inherently think that, oh, I feel bad because it was bad, which means I'm a loser. There you go, right? So I don't like my emotions. But actually, your emotion is speaking to what you have to say about it. Not the circumstances, smoke and mirrors as far as the universe is concerned. Circumstances don't even exist from that perspective. All that exists is what you have to say about it. So when you think a thought about a circumstance when you think a thought about reality in any way, whether that's yourself or the universe, anything that doesn't compute with the way reality is, you're made to feel bad to give you that same motivation to take your hand off the stove to correct your thinking. So a negative feeling is always inferring you to correct your thinking somewhere. So you feel bad about the presentation because you are projecting you think that your value has anything to do with how you performed, right? You go, oh, I'm a loser because I didn't do well. Oh, that feels horrible because it's not true. Does that make sense? So this component for me, has been the greatest catalyst to my spiritual growth, because you can know with absolute certain that that your emotions are the highest source of wisdom you have access to. And you can trust them above all else. And when you come into that sort of spiritual awakening, and you guys can probably already relate to this, you just inherently start to do a lot less thinking and a lot more feeling. Because you know that there is a Holy Spirit in you that is always guiding you into truth based on how you feel. So you kind of naturally learn to start following what resonates and ignoring what doesn't resonate. And so I just want to encourage you to continue on that path and to really trust that intuition within you. Because again, it is the highest source of wisdom we have access to. It is, we are the immediate extension of the source. And so the source is up here with all the variables looking down, and we have a very limited perspective. And so it's kind of guiding us, oh, you went the wrong way, go back this way, right? All based on our feelings. And so when we misperceive life in any way, there's really only one way, there's only one thing that we can actually miscreate, and that is the belief in lack. And so fear and all the manifestations of fear are ultimately you perceiving anything through the filter of lack. When you believe you lack something, or you're unworthy, or not good enough, or whatever, you feel fear, or depression, or insecurity, or any other of those manifestations. But lack is always a projection on your part. It's never actually the case, because the universe is infinite. The only thing that cannot exist, literally, in an infinite universe is lack, because the universe contains everything. There cannot be any gaps in infinity. So lack is always untrue, because at the creative level it doesn't exist, right? So that means it doesn't actually exist at all. So you're allowed to believe in lack if you want. You can project it all you want. You can believe you're not worthy or not good enough. But as long as you do, you're going to feel not great, because it's not true. Love is all that exists. Love is all that can create anything. Love is just another word for abundance, right? Abundance is all that there is. And so when we drop into our meditation today, we're going to do some exercises that will allow you to see the validity of what feels good and the illusion of what feels bad. So I want you now to tune into this space beyond the thinking mind. And just relax into a state of not thinking. Or you could say a state of observation. As a quick exercise, I want you to, without thinking a single thought about anything, no idea, no reference point at all, I want you to allow anger to arise in your being without referencing a thought. See if you can do it. After a couple attempts, you realize it isn't possible. I have to think about something to feel angry. I have to project an idea to feel fear. So fear and any of its manifestations always require a thought in order to exist. They are not self-sustaining. Now I would like you to consider the person that you love the most. See them in your mind's eye. Feel them in your heart. Now ask yourself, can I adequately explain why I love them? Can I tell someone in such a way that it does justice to the feeling I have for them? And you also realize, of course not. If you ask a mother, why does she love her child? Can you please explain to me why you love your child? It feels like a silly thing to do. Anything she says will immediately feel like a betrayal. Well, I love my son because he's so smart. Really? That's why you love him? So if he wasn't smart, you wouldn't love him? Of course not. I would love him no matter what. So love doesn't depend on anything. There is no reason to love someone. It simply radiates because it is what is real. It is what actually exists. And whenever you see anything, with a clear perception, you always feel love. Because to see one thing correctly is to see everything correctly. Because all is one. So you are actually the love with which you love another. You are the happiness you seek outside of yourself. No object can give it to you. No circumstance can hand it to you. Happiness and joy and peace, they're all just the result of not holding any incorrect points of view about reality. When you aren't making a projection, you always feel good. Because it's the natural state. Nothing in the universe is stressed out. Nothing is bummed out. Creation's doing really good. And you are creation. You were made to feel good. So everything you want is already inside you. The essence of whatever you can possibly desire is inside of you. It's not out there. Everything you want out there is merely a symbol that represents a part of who you actually are. We want relationships because we want love. It's never the relationship we want, because if the relationship became horrible and abusive, we wouldn't want it anymore. The love is what we want, because it is our essence. Joy is what we want, because it's our essence. The nature of being is joy, lightness, freedom. In the same way that it's the nature of a rose to smell wonderful. So if we simply correct our thinking, we will see that this is the case, and that lack is never actually the case. You are totally empowered to be a co-creator of your reality. There is nothing holding you back except for the limitations you imagine. The only limitation is how big you can imagine. What's possible? And in order to know what is possible, you have to look inside of yourself first. Because that's where everything is. So everything you want is inside of you, and everything you don't want is just a projection outside of you. But it's not actually there.